Welcome to Free Range with Gail of Gaia. Today, Gail welcomes to the program Tanaath of the Silver Legion. We'll be talking about some interesting new tech released to the public domain. You're going to love this program.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas and talk to wonderful guests. And I have a real treat for you today. We haven't had Tanaath of the Silver Legion on for some time now, and she's coming back to share some very exciting news and information with us concerning believe it or not, a shoebox. And she's going to talk about it, and we're going to try our best to keep this on the censored platform. So we hope that you can follow along. And we make no claims at this point in time, but wait till you hear about this. This is pretty exciting. Well, I'm going to let you take it away there, Tanaath. And please feel free to introduce yourself. And you might want to explain the little blue dragon, because I've had questions about that in the past.
Oh, yeah, that is, hello, everyone. That little blue dragon is one of my favorite sea creatures. It's called a blue dragon. It's a kind of relative of jellyfish. Let me just look it up real quick. I know the name of it, but I've forgotten it.
It is a rather interesting looking little character.
It is a cute little thing. I like it. It is a Glaucus atlanticus, a kind of mollusk or sea slug known as a nudibranch. They can be found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in temperate and tropical waters throughout the world.
Wow.
So they're cute little things. They eat things that make them produce a small toxin, so you probably don't want to play with them too much. But yeah, they're adorable little sea slugs. Sea slugs are some of the coolest looking things.
So do they sting? Is that what happens if you?
They can sting, but it's not a sting that's gonna kill you, but it might hurt a bit. I think they're perfectly adorable. But yeah, that's a blue dragon. It's a nudibranch. If I'm saying that, it might be nudibranch. I'm not sure. Never make fun of somebody who mispronounces something. That means they learned it by reading it, which means they made an effort to self-educate, which is always laudable.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, because I mispronounce things frequently, not on purpose. But, all right. Well, you have created or put together or built, however you want to look upon it.
Well, I didn't create this, but yeah. Okay. I have built based on some instructions that arrived rather mysteriously and fortuitously in my life. And I don't know the source of these, and I'm not going to, even if I ever did know the source, I wouldn't disclose it, because this, quite frankly, is the kind of stuff that, certain interests may not be thrilled about the fact that I'm sharing with the public. And it arrived with a note that said, please get this out and share it with the world in such a way that it doesn't end up disappeared and buried. Basically what this is, and I don't know much about electricity. I am not an electrician. I am not an electronics expert or anything like that. But this is, according to my friend who is an electronics a hobbyist, this is something that shouldn't work, but it does. We've verified that it very much does work. And we've taken to calling it the shoebox of brotherly love.
That's awesome.
And I've posted a build guide on the Silver Legion website. And actually, if Paul can share my screen, I'm actually sharing. There we go. Yep. So this is my website. And as you can see, it is silverlegion.org. So if you ever wanted to know how to find me, since Google has buried me from the web, and if you search for Silver Legion or Tanaath, you'll find very little that's worthwhile. Yeah, you'll have to put it in directly, but that's it right there. And then
I can relate to Tanaath because they do that to anybody that's putting out.
Oh yeah, anybody who's putting out anything they don't like, they bury and they delist, and they make it hard to find. But if you go to the site and you go to download transcripts and scroll past all the past stuff, here it is, SOBL.
And that stands for, once again,
the shoebox of brotherly love.
Yes.
And it's, it's a rough scan, but it'll do the trick. I've given the scan to a couple of other people, and they've been able to successfully build one of these, and it works for them. So as of now, there are several dozen of these things floating around in the ether that people have built. And let's see, what it does is it takes your normal wall current from any electrical outlet in the world, uses a 24 volt 1 amp adapter to turn that into 24 volts of direct current, which it then splits, uses to power an Arduino, and then creates 2 positive poles. Now, the electricians out there are probably saying, what the heck? This shouldn't work. This does nothing. There's no ground. There's no neutral. What the heck is going on here? There's no negative path. This should not work. This should do nothing. Well, it definitely does something. Here, we'll scroll through this. And once again, we make no warranties. We make no claims about health or anything else. This is entirely at your own risk. This is experimental tech. If you follow the guide exactly as it is written, it will work for you. But
and you might even be amazed at some of the results, from what I understand.
Yes, I've been quite amazed. But what it does is it makes 2 little positive direct currents of about 0.05 amps and 20 or 24 volts, actually 28 volts. You turn it up to 28 volts using a little power supply thingy. And it sends them down some network cable, which you then use to shake metallic lattice and knock metallic atoms, 1 atom at a time, off of your silver bars, or gold if you can afford it. I sure can't afford gold. What can you do with that?
Nor could I.
All kinds of useful things. So we'll get into it. Now, I did stop doing shows a number of years ago, and I said I wouldn't be back until I had something that was worth sharing with people. Well, this is worth sharing with people. I made one of these some months ago, and I've been using the end product for all kinds of useful things. And I'm interested in seeing what else I could do with a shoebox of brotherly love besides shake metal. But here we go. So you can download this directly on the site. It's a PDF. I've also given Gail a link to it that you can
I will put it in the description of the videos.
Yeah. So it's mirrored in a couple places just in case things get taken down. So it's whoever did it made it as a Creative Commons non-commercial share-alike licensing. So I'll read it to you. This guide has been made available to you for free under Creative Commons non-commercial share-alike licensing. If you choose to make any changes or improvements based on this build, you must share it under the same licensing restrictions. This information is for all of humanity. Please do not try to profit off of this. Do not patent any of the builds or materials in this guide. The Creative Commons license prohibits the use of this material for commercial gain. This is copyrighted material and may only be reproduced for educational or non-commercial personal use. Disruptive tech can never be patented. It changes everything. We give this to the world. If someone claims they invented this, they are lying. The inventor will always remain anonymous. So that's what's in the guide that we received.
That's awesome, actually.
Yep. And you don't want to try to patent this if you're getting the bright idea, well, I'll go out and make 1 million of these and make $1 million. No, you're going to end up dead in a ditch. Don't do it. Instead, build one, share it with those you love, teach others how to build one, and get them doing it. So what this is, it is an ORME state particle generator. It produces a stable pico-sized ORME state metallic solution in distilled water out of ORME metals. And what that means is orbital rearranged monatomic elements. also known as ormus. Ignore the various claims of people who say they are producing ormus on the web. Most of it is a nutritional supplement that does not or maybe contains like some gold or silver, but is mostly other things that they use to pad it along, and so they can jack up the price to like $90 an ounce or whatever. Yeah. Unless you make it yourself, you can't be sure of what it is. This is how to make it yourself. Really, really cheaply too, as it might turn out.
So yes, didn't you say you could make this for under probably around
150 US? Yeah, $200 Canadian. Max. If you cheap your, if you don't source your parts economically, but these are all really, really common parts. Like the part I use, I ordered exactly what this person showed in their pictures. I could have probably gone cheaper on the Arduino, because a regular Arduino Uno is $5 and the part I got was 20. So I could have saved a little money there if I'd known about that, but I didn't know what I was doing. I taught myself how to solder to do this project. I knew nothing. I didn't even know how to use a multimeter. Fortunately, I had a friend who is an electronics hobbyist, and he helped me build this. He said there's no way this should work, and he was amazed to discover that, yes, indeed it works. So...
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, that's exciting.
So simple parts: an Arduino Uno, 2 buck boost converters, an LM296 or 2596 LED driver DC step down adjustable CC CV power supply module, and I'll show each of these parts. A dual H-bridge DC stepper motor controller driver. Yes, that is for driving your little robot cars. An SPST switch. What that means is a single pole, single throw. It's a simple on and off switch. Any style, no lights. A plastic bottle cap that you can use as a riser for the switch. Alligator clips, ×2. The covers are optional. A 3.1 millimeter jack for the Arduino, AC-DC switching wall wart adapter, 24 volts, less than 1 amp. It is okay if it's a bit bigger or smaller, because you can adjust it using this guy right here, the step-down adjustable power supply. Thin, solid, copper core wires such as network cable. Several colors. You want colors so that you can color code your positives and negatives and things like that. Jumper wires, these are optional. The network cables will work, but jumpers make your life easier. My first box was built using network cables. Then I decided to save up and get the jumper wires like the guide said, and let me tell you, my life was easier. A small wood box, at least 6 by 9 by 2 inches. You can get that at the dollar store. That's where I got mine. A small piece of wood for a divider. That's optional, but it makes your life easier. Soldering iron with a conical tip. Rosin core solder, 0.6 millimeters. You can use lead-free solder. I use tin lead. It doesn't matter. All the parts that have tin and lead are going to be thoroughly sealed in glue gun glue. Wire strippers. Invest in a good set of wire strippers. It'll make your life so much easier. I have the cruddiest piece of wire strippers known to man, and I don't like them. A multimeter, this is not optional. If you don't own a multimeter, borrow one from a friend. You can also get one fairly cheap. It was probably the single most expensive part of the build, was the multimeter. Glue gun, glue sticks, again, dollar store has you $5. Electrical tape. Again, optional. That's if you like to make things nice and pretty. A set of computer screw drives with a variety of driver heads and sizes. A helping hand. Now, the first box I built, I didn't have one of these. When I realized I'm probably going to be building more of these, I bought one. It made my life immensely easier. Those, you don't have to have it, but my God, does it make your life easier. Needle nose pliers with a wire cutter. Wire snips, again, makes your life easier. The first box, I didn't have wire snips. Second box, I decided, yeah, I might as well. A lot nicer. A cutting tool such as an X-Acto and a T-light to remove excess glue. Glue gun. Glue gun glue can be easily removed with a little application of heat. It's very useful. Solder wick for unsoldering. This is your eraser. Handheld drill and bits. A finely toothed saw for modifying your box or your divider. A pencil. Solder flux. And the guide recommended not buying the expensive electronics flux. Apparently, plumber's acid flux works just fine. You can get it in big pots. My friend let me use his. I think I might be buying some flux because I think I'm going to be making more of these. A solder tip cleaning sponge. And apparently solder tips, they wear out, so you're going to be buying more over time. My soldering iron cost me $9. You don't have to go insanely expensive on these things. Cardboard sheet, damp rag, a container for all your little bits, and some safety glasses. All right. Safety warning. If you've never soldered before, even lead-free solder and non-toxic flux can irritate your respiratory tract. So always solder in a well-ventilated area. If you have a fume hood or a fume fan, that's even better. I don't. I just use a well-ventilated area. If you're soldering with products that contain lead, don't ever eat, drink, smoke, or consume anything when you're soldering or in the soldering area, and always clean the area very well after you're done because there is no safe amount of lead. So I followed that safety bit to the T because I'm the same thing when I practice with my pew-pew. I always wash well after using my pew-pew because lead is not something you should mess around with. So
yeah, very toxic.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
one of those heavy metals.
Yeah, that is a helping hand. Somebody just linked a helping hand there on the screen. That's not me. Those things are great. That's the same one I got, I think. It's got a little magnifying glass and two little clippy things. And let me tell you, that thing is magnificent. I'm super happy with mine.
How long did it take you to put this together?
Well, the first one took probably 5 or 6 hours because I had no idea what I was doing and I was learning how to solder. The second one took 2. Like you put these together in an afternoon. Yeah, you put it together in an afternoon. It's easy.
Oh my goodness.
Remember that you're working with electricity. So when you're working with electricity, don't let stuff touch that ain't supposed to touch, or you're gonna let the magic blue smoke out. And if you let the magic blue smoke out, it's not gonna work. Don't misuse tools. It's pretty general advice. You don't have to go out and buy the top of the line stuff. You could borrow from friends. You can use cheap stuff. Like I said, my soldering iron is a $9 soldering iron. You don't have to go all out. Some people, my friend has a fancy butane powered soldering iron. That's pretty cool, but you don't have to go all out. And they've got notes here for first time builders. This is, I guess it's called a spaghetti build, meaning it's basically held together with spit and duct tape, or in this case, glue gun glue. It is meant to be, every part of it is meant to be easily removed and replaced. That's why they use glue gun glue. That means you can pop stuff off with a little heat. And here's some warnings to make sure that you don't let your copper touch anything it shouldn't. There's links that you can't click because it's a PDF of an image, but you can probably put them in. There's links on tutorials on how to solder and how to use a multimeter. I had to use these because I had no clue.
I wouldn't either, Tanaath.
Yeah. This is what
nice
the finished...
It's possible.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is what the finished project looks like. And like I said, it's a very small thing. I thought it would be large. No, you only need a few things. And you can see here is the Arduino Uno or Uno compatible. Here's the 3.1 millimeter jack. Here is the H driver. That's the motor. This is the adjustable power supply. This is a buck boost, and this is a buck boost. This is your, they call it a wall wart. It is your adapter. And all of the system feeds into these two little clips. I'm not too sure what the sponge is for. I think it's used for cleaning up the silver bars. It wasn't really explained, but the document mentions at another point that you use a chemical-free sponge like a Scotch-Brite to clear the bars. So I think that's why it's shown in this kit. So this is a very nice, pretty build. And here is a diagram of the circuits. So red is positive, black is negative. It shows clearly what's in, what's out. Now, when building this with another friend, he made the mistake of connecting the in to the out of the two buck bridges or buck boosts. You have to connect the ins together. They go to the negative line, and then you connect the ins together for the in pluses, and they go to the switch. So I'm sure this makes sense to some people. I just know that I built the thing and it works. This shows a pretty good explanation of what's going on.
That's encouraging, Tanaath, because it's all Greek to me.
Yeah, it was to me when I started. Now that I've built a few, it's like, oh, I understand what's going on here. I understand why we do it this way. I did that first, but it's really not that hard. If you can do Lego, you can do this. If you're a person who struggles with Lego, find somebody who can do Lego and get them to do this. It's not that hard. So apparently, and this is what I did too, you start by taking your cardboard and you wipe it down, and that makes it a less static environment. And then you take your box and you lay out all your parts roughly where they're going to go.
So basically, the best thing to do would be get all the parts initially. So
yeah,
you got
get all the
ready
parts.
to
So
go.
you have everything there. It's like cooking. You have your mise en place. You want all your bits there, right? So you get all
Read
your
over the recipe before you start.
yeah. And the only thing that's not shown in this is all the wire, and that's okay because I guess they assume that you have wire coming out the wazoo. I've got some network spools, so yeah, I have wire coming out the wazoo. If you don't have wire coming out the wazoo, get some old network cable. That works just fine. If it's a piece that doesn't work anymore, even better. You can cut it up, no problem. So lay out your parts and then draw on the box itself to sort of where everything's going to go. And there's a warning here. Make sure that you have enough clearance for your USB on the Uno. It's right there. Because if you can't plug your USB in, you can't program your card. And I guess the programming of the card is absolutely critical in this. And this switch here that whoever put this together did apparently was the wrong switch. They said don't use one with a light. Make sure it is a single pole, single throw switch. If you put that term in, SP, ST, it'll give you the right kinds of switches. And so here's a close-up. There's the Arduino. It could be flush. And here's a close-up of the H bridge. You have to leave a little bit of space there because you're going to be plugging stuff in. The heatsink can be flush, but these guys here and these guys here have to have enough clearance. And there you can see the glue gun glue. Literally glue gun together. This is the DC adjustable power supply. Each one of these little towers, which is called a pot, each one of these little towers is adjustable and it controls a different part of the electricity. One controls amperage, one controls voltage, and one is a charge indicator. So you use a little tiny computer screwdriver to adjust these righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, same as anything else that uses a screwdriver. And there you can see the diagrams on the board. Make sure exposed wire never touches anything. So you're going to start by soldering your buck boost to your power supply. Out negative to in negative, out negative to in, or out positive to in positive. And then you're going to add some leads. They're called leads onto the other ends. And you're going to stick them down. And you're going to have coming from the DC DC adjustable power supply, you're going to have them going into the H bridge. There's a more detailed picture up here that shows, and this box is has the DC adjustable facing a different way. It doesn't matter what way they face, as long as all the parts go to the right places. So this is minus minus, which means out. That goes to the middle pot. Plus plus, which you can't see in this, goes to that pot right there on the side. And then you use a screwdriver to clamp it down. It fits into a little slot, and then you use the screwdriver to tighten it down. And so then you stick those parts in, and you go on to the next part, the other buck boost. And you've got your ins over here, and you give them nice long tails. And you have your outs going to the jack. And you need to leave some wiggle room, because the jack is going to be unplugged and plugged into the Arduino over and over again. Because when you tune the box, the Arduino has to be unplugged. Because if too much electricity goes through it, you will fry that Arduino. Wow. I didn't understand this. My friend explained, no, he's got it like this because otherwise you're going to fry your Arduino. You got to turn it down to 15 volts. So this one here has a little pot that allows you to turn it down to 15 volts. And there it goes into the Arduino. Negative to negative, positive to positive, use the little screwdriver to pin it down. And then you stick it into the box. And that's 90% of your wiring right there. Not hard at all. And so then you take your switch. And now with the, somebody just switched screens on me there.
That's probably Paul.
Oh yeah, Paul, you've got a soldering iron kit. Like, see, there we go. That's a nice thing there. We got $25.99. That's probably US. $25.99, and you get pretty much all you're going to need to make this project in terms of tools, save for the helping hand. They even got some nice little probes and picks in there, which would make your life easier. Yeah, that's probably a decent buy if you don't have any supplies whatsoever. Hey, it even looks like they have some solder wick. Oh, they do. Hey, that's nice. I wish I knew about that. They even got a nice little stand there. Wow.
I would have had to have gotten something like that because I don't have any of those tools at all.
Yeah, I didn't have anything when I started. The only thing I had was a pair of pliers. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I have what I need. But, yeah, if you can go back to my screen share there. Thanks, Paul. You can get a lot of these parts on Amazon, by the way. You can actually get a lot of them bulk. Like you can buy the H bridges like in lots of 5. You can buy the DC power converters in like lots of 7. If you're going to be making a few of these, it might be worthwhile to buy bulk. So here is the wiring of the switch. And so this is just a simple on and off switch. Pay attention to the voltage. Some switches have a governor. And so if it's higher than 12 volts, it won't work. So this is 5 amps, 125 vac, or 3 amps, 250 vac. I'm not sure what that means, but it's definitely more than 28 volts, which is what we need, and 0.5 amps or 0.05 amps, which is what we need. So that's fine. Bigger is okay. It just can't be less. And so you take your wall wart and you cut off the tip, the plug where it would plug into whatever you're doing, and you strip the wire and you wire the positive cable into one end of the switch and the negative cable into the twisted out switches from the, not out, in negative. That's in negative. So the negative gets wired to the negative and the positive goes directly into the switch. And then you take your in plus always means that there's live current going through it when it's on, and you wire them to the other little peg. Be careful, because your soldering iron has to heat up that little peg hot enough that it will bond with the solder and with the wire. But if you heat it too much, it could fall out of the plastic housing of the switch. That happened to me when I was doing this. Fortunately, switches are about 50 cents. So
that's
that wasn't
helpful.
that wasn't a big deal.
Can I make 2 comments?
Yep.
First of all, that soldering iron kit that I showed, it has an adjustable temperature, which is important because sensitive electronic components
They can get
don't
too hot,
deal with
yeah.
they don't deal with high heat very well. That is a 60-watt adjustable soldering iron, so it can get hot enough to solder big things, but you can turn it down to solder small things. That soldering kit also has a digital multimeter included in it, so that covers the soldering iron. It also has wire clippers, so it handles that tool. It handles pretty much everything that you need, including the solder wick and the vacuum plunger desolder tool.
Yeah. I wish I'd known about that, because it would have been a lot better than what I got. And probably a lot cheaper the long run than what I got mine bit by bit here and part by part. So, yeah.
And the ratings on those switches, they're rated 125 volts AC.
Yeah, that's your wall.
VAC, and that's much higher than
what we need. Yeah.
For this device. So just
Yes.
make sure that the switches are rated either 125 or 250 volts AC, and you'll have plenty.
Yeah.
That was
You're
was
using
all.
an adapter to lower it to 24 volts and 1 amp anyway.
Yeah.
And at the sorry, go ahead.
What I will do is I will drop the links to both the helping hand and the solder kit in the chat, so
that would be awesome, Paul. Thank you so much. For those of us who are not familiar with this type of thing, because we haven't ever done this type of thing, even though Tanaath hasn't either, but she did it anyway, it's just helpful to know these little things and to have them available to you. So thank you very much for that.
It is. You're thanks. Welcome. I had a lot to learn in learning this. Fortunately, I'm adventurous. Anytime somebody comes to me and says, hey, do you know how to do this? And I say no. And they say, hey, do you want to learn? I usually say yes. So, if I can learn how to do this, you can too. Going back to our switch here, make sure you're positive. And I guess your positive always has like a dashed or dotted line on it, or it's red. So the positive goes in one side of the switch. And then the other side feeds into the positive in your buck boosts, both of them. So you're going to take the ends of these and solder them together, and then you're going to solder them to your switch. And you got to be very, very careful that these two never, ever touch. Because if they touch, it's going to cause a fire. It's going to send electricity directly from here, which is live, into here, bypassing the switch, and you'll never be able to turn it off. You'll have to unplug it from the wall. It could cause a fire. Don't do that. Be very careful with this to make sure that nothing touches except what's supposed to be touching.
It looks very close. That looks like you really, really have to be careful there.
Yeah, it's a tiny little switch. Now, they make bigger switches. This guy used a small switch. I used exactly what he used here because, like I said, I had no idea what I could modify when I went out to do this. I just ordered exactly what was shown and did it exactly as it was shown. And yeah, now that I've done it a few times, I'm like, yeah, I could do this differently.
If I can share one more thing.
Yeah.
The voltages present inside this box are 24 volts turned up to 28. Big deal. Okay. Mm-hmm. There are no hazardous voltages anywhere in this box. And even if you do short something out in the box, the worst you're going to do is burn out the little power adapter. It's not going to start a fire. It's highly unlikely it'll start a fire, and it won't hurt you, even if the box is live, but never mess with it when the box is live.
Exactly. My friend who knows more about electricity took a look at this and he said, these are really low voltages and you can't get into a lot of trouble with it. And I said, okay.
Yeah, so we don't want to scare people and say, okay, if you do this wrong, you're going to burn down the block. We don't want to do that.
No, you'll be fine. This is very low power.
we would not suggest that you do anything even remotely hazardous to your health, happiness, and peace of
Do
mind.
not try to bypass the do not try to up the voltage. Do not try to bypass the adapter and go straight to the wall with the wall current. That is enough to fry yourself with and kill yourself very handily. Please don't do it.
Yep.
If you're using the adapter and you're using the parts listed here, the most you can do is give yourself a little zap and go, ow, and I've done that. So, yeah.
If you've ever stuck your tongue on the end of a 9-volt battery, that's basically what you're dealing with. So don't.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I won't.
It's low power, and the guide says it makes an effort. It makes an effort to tell you that higher power is not needed. This works best with low power. So bigger is not better.
Fantastic. And I notice you even have a tutorial listed in your instructions on how to solder.
Yes. It's not hard. It's really not hard. I could do it. You can too. Like I said, if you could do Lego or IKEA or any of those things, you can handle this. It's not that hard. It's just, maybe a new skill.
It looks a little intimidating.
It looks intimidating when you take a look at it at first. It looks scary, but it's really, after I've built 3 of these, and more, and taught others how to build them, because I got a coworker that's also building them. I got friends who are building them. It's not that hard. So here they've got the switch safely glued down, out of the way. Not enough clearance for the USB, it says. So this is a bad switch because it has a light in it. And there's not enough clearance. So here's what not to do. Be careful with this or you will have problems. I ended up having too much glue on mine, and I had to follow the advice to use an X-Acto knife and a tea light to carefully carve away glue. So yeah, it's okay. It can be fixed. It's not a big deal. If you make a mistake, you can fix it. As long as the card doesn't break, and none of these cards cost more than about $7. So if a card breaks, it's not a big deal.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. And here we've got the tan and blue twinned wires plugged into those into the H bridge. You can get a better shot of it here. And those go to the alligator clips. Whoever did this is as messy as I am. So I think this person must have been teaching another person how to make boxes, because you can see mistakes and you can see things that are different here. And so once you've got your box mostly wired up, you can stuff your alligator clips in a little hole and glue gun them into place, right? And the color doesn't matter. Both are positive. So if you were doing this really properly, you'd get 2 red ones. But I guess whoever had this had a red and a black one. I had a red and a black one. I used a red and a black one. I know, right? So I'm the one using this. Nobody else touches it. In we go. And so here it shows in detail the wiring between the Arduino and the H bridge. So here you've got from the DC adjustable power supply, you have the lines going in. Positive here, negative in the middle. You have from the 5-volt setting of the Arduino Uno going into this one here at the bottom. Then you have from slot number 8 going into one of these little jumpers. And keep an eye here, because there's a jumper pin here that you take off and you use to stick these in. You have to have the jumper pin in order to get the jumper wire in there. And you can do this with network cable, but it's finicky. A jumper cable works better. I tried it with both. The network cable is really, really finicky. The jumper cable is much, much better. So you have your jumper here on those pegs there, and then you have a jumper hanging off the edge of this one. Yeah, it's a little weird. And then you have a jumper hanging off the edge of this one, and it goes into slot 7 and slot 8. And what this does is when you're programming your Arduino, it sends information down here, which goes down that wire into that little thing, which goes into the board and out through one of those. So one of these little guys here goes out here, and the other little guy goes out its neighbor. So the Arduino tells it what rate to fire electricity. That's all it does.
Okay.
That's all it does. It effectively tells it the frequency. And that's why you have to have an Arduino. You could do this with a breadboard if you know enough about breadboards. I don't know anything about breadboards. So I used an Arduino Uno. And because I didn't know enough to buy a regular Arduino Uno, I bought exactly the one that the guy had in his box and paid a little more money than I should. So you can buy one of these if you want to support a Canadian company. But otherwise, I would say, just find an Arduino Uno for about $5. Not a big deal. So that's how you wire the Arduino into the H-bridge. At that point, your H-bridge goes out to your alligator clips, and here's the stuff going in.
Well, what's nice about this is with you explaining it like this, somebody can take the instructions and kind of go along with the video, and if they're having any problems with the instructions whatsoever, and you're just walking them through it. So that's great.
Yeah. And so you'll have to look up on your multimeter what the diode setting is and all of that. So now that you've got it all wired up and you're ready to go, now you need to test all your connections. And so you do that by taking your multimeter. Red goes in positive, black on negative. This is something that it helps to have another person helping you with, because holding a multimeter while like turning screws and stuff is kind of hard. And even a helping hand won't really help you with. You need a second set of hands. So you need to check that you've wired your switch correctly. If you've wired your switch correctly, the numbers will reach as close to 000 as you can. If it's over 000, make sure you don't got a light on your switch, because that will give resistance. If it's up like around 1,000, something's wrong. Redo the connections, rewire it. So then it says here, unplug the jack from the Arduino before you continue. Do not plug your wall wart in before this point. Now unplug your jack so that this guy here is not plugged into your Arduino, because if something's wrong, it'll fry your Arduino. You don't want that. That's, $5 that you don't want to waste. So, or 20 if you're like me and you buy the expensive one. Unplug your jack, plug it into the wall, power it on, and then you use your multimeter to put red on plus, black on negative, and take the DC or the buck boost and turn it to 15 volts on your voltage setting. And then you use a little screwdriver to turn that, and you change that to 15 volts. No more, no less, just 15 volts going into the Arduino. An Arduino can't take much more than that or it'll go fry. So that's why you have this this DC buck boost here, is so that you can adjust how much power goes to the Arduino. I figured that much out. That's the only reason you have this guy here. Now the next part is your blue one. So your blue one over here, you're going to stick your multimeter on the out. So you're going to find the ones that say out, or they say plus plus and minus minus, because plus plus and minus minus means the same thing as out. And you're going to put the black one on the negatives and the red one on the positives. And you're going to adjust the three little pots. I'll go to a close-up up here of the part. Your three little pots here until it says 28 volts and 0.05 to 0.07 amps. So it's down really, really low. This is super, super low amperage. Like you couldn't even light a fire with this amperage. It's so low. Right, Paul? You certainly can't hurt yourself very much. Amperage is what kills you, apparently. And 0.05 amperage is extremely, extremely low. So you're turning that down on the blue one as far as it can go. And then, apparently, congratulations, you're done. So at this point, you can plug in your Arduino and you can turn it on. Now, it's a little bit fun when it comes to turning it on, because the blue one with the three pots, the DC-DC adjustable power supply, it only goes to about 24 amps, or sorry, 24 volts. So you're a little bit over its limit. And apparently this is working as intended. You're not over its limit enough to damage the card, but you're over its limit enough that the governor will kick in. So to start this thing, you have to flip that little switch back and forth until you get the timing just right, and the light stays solid when it comes on and it doesn't flash. If it flashes, it's not running.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a little finicky. And I don't know if there's a way to do this without this. I don't know enough about electricity and parts and things like that. But yeah, the way it was written, this is how it's supposed to be. It is working as intended. It is finicky.
Like I said, it's all Greek to me.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm glad
And
you're
I can tell you,
explaining it.
sometimes if you're in a hurry and you're impatient, starting the box is a bit of a pain in the butt. But you have patience and you flip that thing and you get it going, and then sooner or later that light will be solid and you're flying. Okay, so the Arduino program is listed here. You just copy that to your Arduino uploader thingy, your uploader program, and it's just straight code. What it does, I had another friend, I don't know anything about coding either, so I just copied it and followed the instructions, and a friend of mine said, this just flashes a light. No, it doesn't just flash a light. It sends the signal to the H bridge at the same interval that the light flashes, which is apparently 2 hertz.
Well, some of us are kindergartners on this, you know.
I'm a kindergartner when it comes to this. I didn't know anything about this. So I went and I copied and pasted it in, and I learned how to upload it onto an Arduino. There's no instruction on the guide on how to do this. You can Google it. It's not hard. I plugged in my Arduino and I got it programmed, and had a little frustration in that the first time I tried to do it, I was using a USB power cable, and it has to be a USB data cable. Yeah. So got that in, got it started. And yeah, not that hard. And it says here, please do not try to increase generation rate. 140 hours at 2 hertz in 19 gallons produces the current state. If the hertz is too fast, the resulting product is more prone to collapse. If you need a stronger mix faster, use a smaller volume of water. This is strong stuff. So if you need more of this, make another box. Yep. This is household use, not industrial, okay? Operating your box. With your box unpowered, hook your module up to the alligator clips, and then I'll explain the module here in a bit. To start your box, plug the Arduino jack in and ensure that the Arduino is switched off using the Arduino board switch. I'll show this one to you really quick because I didn't know what it meant until my friend explained it to me. Where are we? I had a close-up. That right there is the Arduino board switch. When the little peg is towards the jack, the power is on. When the little peg is towards the USB, the power is off. So when you start the box, the power should be off. So turn off the Arduino so that it doesn't fire when it's not supposed to. And then it says here, plug your wall wart in and turn the master switch inside the box. And this says, because the voltage has been set to 28 volts and the limit of the DC-DC adjustable power supply is 24 volts, the red LED on the power supply will start to flash. This indicates that it is not functioning. This is intentional. Do not lower or change the voltage. Flip your switch back and forth several times and then leave the switch on. There may be a blue flash from the DC-DC adjustable power supply. This is okay. Try to time your flipping to the flash. This may take a few tries. When the red LED on the power supply is solid red, your box is on. Yes, it can take a few minutes, but it will eventually work. Turn on your Arduino by using the board switch. It should come on and either flash or be solid according to your Arduino program and the module you are running. Your box is now running. You may be able to hear it buzz. And it does, it makes a little bzzz noise. So, congratulations. You have a functioning box doing the work you created it to do. You can use a non-contact voltage tester to ensure that power is reaching your alligator clips. Those things cost about $20. They're really cool. They go beep, 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 beep when they encounter a field. Maybe Paul can pull up a non-contact voltage tester. So, there's some common mistakes and errors. Nothing happens when the power switch is turned on. Make sure you're using the correct switch. It needs to be a single pole, single throw switch that functions at 28 volts or higher. Ensure your connections are secure. Test this with a multimeter. If there is no number or the number is very high, you need to redo your connection. Make sure your switch is in the on mode. Ensure your wall wart is functioning by unplugging it and testing both the positive and negative leads. Check all your connections and ensure all the parts are connected correctly. The Arduino USB cannot be plugged in. Adjust the positioning of the Arduino or any other board components until there is enough room to plug in your USB. You may need to move the master switch or remove glue globs until you have clearance. I had to remove glue globs. There's always more glue than you think there is. Oh, yeah, there is a non-contact voltage tester. Very cheap. As you see, you can even get them for less than $20. And they're fun. You can also use it to test that your module, which is this guide calls the silver stuff the module 1. You can test that there's a current by using a non-contact voltage and waving it around in the area. And if it's within about a foot of it, it'll go beep, 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 beep. It's working. Oh. Yeah.
When you get a non-contact voltage tester, make sure you get one that supports down to 12 volts. Yeah. Because a lot of them are 60 to 1,000 volts. You can use those to check and see if you blew a fuse or if you've got a burned out light bulb, in a lamp.
Yeah. But you want something that'll test low voltages, very low voltages.
You want something that'll test low voltages. So specifically look for 12 volt or higher.
Yeah. So another problem, the DC-DC adjustable power supply flashes red. This is by design. Flip the master power switch until it goes solid red. It can take a number of tries. Keep at it. The device is powered up, but there's no output from the H-bridge. Check that all the connections to and from the H-bridge are correct and secure. How do I use this? This shouldn't work or do anything. The shoebox of brotherly love is merely a voltage regulator. It is intended to be used with a module, such as Module 1, which is published below. As further modules are developed, further modules will be published. I'm assuming my mysterious benefactor will drop another document on my doorstep. To use the Sobel with Module 1, hook the leads of Module 1 up to the alligator clips and place the silver cage into your distilled water and start the box. It does in fact work. A number of working models have been made by a number of different people following these instructions. To verify that it is working, you may use a non-contact voltage detector near the end of Module 1. If it is peeping, it is working. Module 1. So here's what Module 1 is. This is a build plan for Module 1 designed to go with the shoebox of brotherly love, the trigger box. The shoebox of brotherly love produces twinned positive poles of direct current with no ground and no negative. When fired down 1.5 meters of solid copper network cable on a 2 Hertz cycle into 2 paired 1 ounce silver bars of 99.999 silver, it will shake silver atoms loose in a monatomic state with their electron shells intact. It shatters the metallic lattice bonds and ties the outer ring electrons together. These are also known as orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, ORMEs. The technique can be used on gold as well and possibly other metals with even numbers of electrons. This build shakes ORMEs loose into distilled water. At the time of this writing, the people producing this build have only tested silver. The effects of other materials are unknown. 2 1-ounce silver bars will last approximately 9 years of continuous runtime, producing approximately 57,000 liters of human-grade water. Silver can be obtained at any reputable precious metal dealer or bank. Because operating the module does strip silver from the bars, you will need to inspect your bars after every use and redo this periodically. And I can attest to that. I've already had to resolder mine twice.
Interesting.
So you will need 1.5 meters of network cable. Use solid copper core if you can get it. And this is different from copper-coated aluminum. I don't know why this matters, but apparently it matters. 1 aquarium grate, just a regular plastic aquarium grate. 2 1-ounce silver bars. Depending on silver prices, this is $25 to $40 a bar.
Probably it's a good idea to get that now before the price goes up.
Exactly. Order it. If nothing else, you can always trade it, right? 2 computer screws. 1 aquarium bubbler kit with bubbler stone. I'm thinking probably one that's never been used before. A little bit of tethering wire. Rosin core solder. Soldering iron, flux, your helping hand, your glue gun, your kitchen shears. A drill, a screwdriver. A 1 liter, that's 1 quart for Americans. Glass container such as a mason jar. Distilled water, and this specifies it must be free of ions. So steam distilled water is free of ions. And your shoebox of brotherly love. Whoever did this is a Canadian, and I'm thinking they must have been because they had access to my house. They were able to leave this document on my doorstep. And so they drilled a hole in the corner of the silver bars using your simple drill. And then you cut 1.5 meters of network cable and remove the outer shell from approximately 4 inches of cable and solder to the bar. Separate 2 twisted pairs, only 2. Clip the other 2 twisted pairs at the cable hole and remember which colors go together. And strip the ends and twist those bits together and thread them through the holes and screw it into place with the computer screws tightly. I used a helping hand for this part because it was a lot easier because your silver bar gets very, very hot from the soldering iron. Silver is extremely heat conductive. Don't touch this with your hands. You will burn yourself. Use a toothpick or a shim to put a little bit of flux paste into the cracks between the computer screw and the silver. Heat the computer screw with the soldering iron. It takes longer to heat than the silver bar because computer screws are not as conductive. It says capillary action will pull the solder into the joint. Solder should mound up on the screw when it's correctly joined. And here's a picture, solder mounded up. Apparently you don't have to worry about getting solder on the bar because you're going to coat this whole area with glue gun glue. So solder's mounding up on the screw, on the rear and the front, both.
Huh.
So then while the bar is still hot from the solder, you can encase the whole mess with plenty of glue. You don't want to encase the whole bar because there needs to be enough bar exposed to the water that you're getting silver from it, but you're going to encase the whole corner with glue. And you're going to check over on all sides to make sure that all of the glue or all of the metal is glue, because if your copper wire is exposed, you'll get copper ormus. And we don't know what copper ormus does, and it'll also destroy your connection. So get glue gun on everything. Glue is non-conductive, non-reactive, and it seals wonderfully. So slop it on there. Glue everywhere, right? Inspect your bars and wires very carefully and glue any exposed metal. There is no such thing as too much glue. You can always remove it later. Glue is your friend. Buy a big bag of glue gun sticks. Now the aquarium grate. Using your kitchen shears. Cut a piece of aquarium grate that is at least 2 wide and 4 long. Cut little slots in the middle of 3 of those pieces in the middle. Those are what you're going to slip the bar into. You don't want the bars to touch. It says here, never let the bars to touch while the machine is running. Never let any connection be made between the two poles. I don't know what will happen. I've never let them touch. I don't want to find out. Probably bad things. So your aquarium grate will hold your little bars in place. And once the glue on the silver is set, slide the bars into the cage, pointing in exact opposite directions from each other. Please note the configuration below. So there's one corner pointing that way, and the other one pointing the opposite corner. So they're alternating. And I'm guessing this is why they're using solder and glue guns, because you have a good, strong connection. And they have to be fully submerged in water and alternating. So, other configurations probably aren't going to work too well. Make sure to seal the cut ends of the cable. So up here where your cut ends are, you're going to seal that with glue gun. You're going to tether it to your little aquarium grate. Everything that might be exposed metal has to be sealed so that it doesn't react. Take the air tube from the bubbler and run it parallel to the bars. So your air tube comes down through there and it gets tethered there and sealed with glue so that you don't have any exposed metal. And it's sitting there at the bottom of the unit. So air will come up and hit the silver as it's coming off. And if the silver wasn't bubbled, it would rebind to the bar. But because it's bubbled, it gets knocked loose and it's free floating in the distilled water. So stone should be installed at the end of the bubbler tube and then anchored to the bottom of the cage. Please note there is an exposed wire, that's the black spot here, indicated that this bar needs to be resealed before use. Always inspect your bars after every use. So here's the thing you can look for. If you see this black stuff, reseal your bars. I've resealed my bars a couple times. It's no biggie. After the first few times, it's big deal. Got to reseal the bars. Your other ends, these hook into your alligator clips. So only use the ones that you're going to use. So if you're using green and white and blue and white, then you're going to clip all the ones you're not using so that you don't end up accidentally using them. And so green and white goes into one pole, blue and white goes into the other. At this point, he says you are ready to season the bars. The first time you use your bars, get a clean, never used mason jar about 250 milliliters to 500 milliliters in size, 1 cup to 1 pint. Rinse it with distilled water and polish it dry with a cloth. Fill it 3/4 full with distilled water. Submerge the bubbler stone and aquarium line with the cage assembly on top of it in the water. Start the shoebox. Make sure the Arduino is programmed on 2 Hertz rather than radiant mode. I don't know what radiant mode is, but 2 Hertz pulse. Start the Sobel. Ensure the Arduino is switched off. Get it running correctly so it's not flashing, and then turn on the Arduino. Start the bubbler. Run it for an hour and observe the bars. If the bars are still silvery or gray, everything is okay. If the bars are turning black, this indicates that there is a voltage leak. Power down the machine, remove the bars, remove the hot glue, and redo all of the connections. This may need to be done several times. Always clean the bars well and always test run the bars for at least an hour. The first time I did it, I got black bars. I freaked out. And then I reread the guide and realized it wasn't a big deal. Just don't use the stuff. So your jar can make it look difficult. Make it difficult. You have to lift it out of the water and observe the bar. If it is black, you will see it. There is a black bar. Mine was even blacker when it came out. So pictured here are improperly sealed bars with a voltage leak. If your bar starts to turn black, immediately power off the unit. Note that refraction can make your bars look black when they are not. Always pull out of the water to check. Wearing rubber gloves. Remove the cage assembly from the water. Discard the water and do not use it for any purpose. Rinse the jar with hydrogen peroxide and then with distilled water and polish dry. You can use hydrogen peroxide on your silver bars to remove the black stuff as well. You may reuse the jar after the silver oxide has been removed. So using hydrogen peroxide, 3% consumer grade is fine. Remove all of the silver oxide. Use a chemical-free Scotch-Brite or other similar abrasive pad to clean the bar. Polish dry with a cloth. Remove all the glue, check the soldering connection, repair it, heat up the silver bar with a soldering iron or a tea light, and reseal it with glue gun glue. Replace the cage with a new cage cut from aquarium grade. You don't have to do that, but you can if it's broken because they break really easy. Run again in a fresh batch of water and observe carefully for signs of blackening. Gray is okay. Black is not. You may need to remove residual contamination with an abrasive pad and clean up a bit more. Always discard any product from a black bar. Make sure you use an air stone. Running the unit without an air stone can lead to black bars. Properly, okay, it says that there's a properly working set of bars, but I don't see it here, so it must have gotten lost. They are dark gray and dull. This is a sign that the box is working as it is knocking off crystalline silver atoms with a complete electron shell. New bars will lose their shiny luster within a few hours. Please note it is absolutely imperative to include the bubbler stone as the fine bubbles knock the silver loose before it can be rebinding to the bar. So you can use something called the Tyndall effect to verify your mixture. When you shine a laser, such as a laser pointer, through a correctly produced vessel of silver water, the laser path will light up like a lightsaber. This is an indication that the silver is a correct particle size. You need a very powerful laser to demonstrate the Tyndall effect on 140-hour grade product. But the more concentrated product will display the Tyndall effect with a weak laser like a kitty pointer. Here's an example of the Tyndall effect. Mine didn't look like that. Mine looked like a bunch of, mine wasn't this strong. I'm taking it. This is really strong stuff. But mine looked like a bunch of really glittery bits floating in the water. So here it says on the left, the red solution is an example of a collapsed colloidal state. If your product collapses, do not use it. So if your stuff goes red, don't use it. And it says if it goes red, first it'll go black, like Vanta black. Then it will go like greeny brown or red, brown, green, and then finally kind of a muddy, mucky color. My friend that also made this managed to do that and collapse it just to see if he could. Yeah, it does collapse. If it collapses, it's not good for anything other than feminizing seeds. And there's no use that most people legally have for feminizing seeds. It'll ensure that the product of a male plant only produces female seeds if you treat your seeds with the red stuff. It is not good for anything else. Throw it out. You may also use, he calls it a ppm meter. I think that's just one of those things that checks dissolved solids, like if you do hydroponics. It should say 0.00 ppm. ppm is a measure of ionic activity, and if this is monoatomic, there will be no ionic activity. Because you're using distilled water, there's no ions. So if you have both,
important. Yeah.
Yes, that's very important. Don't use colloidal silver, except on your skin or for cleaning. Don't use ionic silver at all. So if it collapses, it's now ionic or it's colloidal. Don't use it for anything. But if it has the Tyndall effect from a powerful laser and it's 0.00 ppm, you have the correct stuff. This is monatomic silver suspended in distilled water. I was able to measure this with my own. Yes, it reliably produced it. It produced monoatomic silver suspended in distilled water. Well, what can you do with this? All kinds of stuff, it turns out.
It's very interesting. What people can do to be on the safe side is actually look up monatomic silver and the different things that it can do, because we can't make any claims, but you can look this up and you might be surprised at some of the things that it says.
And I will reiterate here, everything, if you choose to make this yourself, you choose to do this entirely at your own risk. If you choose to use this in any way, you choose to use this entirely at your own risk. I have chosen to use this and I have had some pretty interesting results.
Yes, when I'm looking at, as we were speaking, I was looking at some of the monoatomic silver properties that they talk about when you do a little research on it, and it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, very fascinating information.
Yeah,
You
synaptic
may have
firing
seen,
efficiency was one that I really go, wow, that's pretty interesting. So anyway, I don't want to say too much, but definitely look this up. Now, if you use the gold bars, you'd be making the monatomic gold,
yeah,
correct?
yeah,
And
you would
so
be.
this,
And if you had, same thing if you had platinum or rhodium or any of the platinum group metals, like good luck getting your hands on those. But, my friend and I are going to be panning for gold in the summer, and we're going to see if we can make some gold bars of our own. So, because neither of us can afford gold. But yeah, we're interested in finding out what happens if we produce that. So the author of this calls the test batch patch kit. Your first batch of water will be what we call patch kit. After you've confirmed that your bars are working properly and there's no problem with black bar, run the machine with bars submerged in 1 liter of distilled water for 24 hours. When you notice a film of silver on top of the water, the patch kit is done. You may also place a piece of cling wrap over the water while generating. This reduces splatters around the jar, but it also shows a silver film when the jar is ready. So for mine, it takes about 2 days to produce a silver film.
One thing they can do with the ppm meter, that's a parts per million meter, is test your distilled water before you use it,
Yep, you can be
because
sure it's pure that way.
you
yeah,
have to it has to be 0.00. If it's not 0.00, there are dissolved solids in there, and it's a poor quality distilled water. Pick a different brand or steam distill your own.
Yep. You can get distillers and you can make your own. When we lived on the farm, we had so much sulfur
yes.
in the water that you couldn't drink it. It was disgusting. It smelled like rotten eggs, right? So we distilled water on there.
Well,
So
if
with
somebody
patch
else
clip,
I have a distiller myself here that
and
I
that way you've
use.
always got enough water, even if the water stores are shut down. So hey, this is a useful thing. So
Exactly.
the
if
patch
somebody has
kit.
as a side note, if somebody has an excessive sulfur problem in their well, open the well cap, pour a cup of bleach in the well, and leave it alone for an hour, and that sulfur smell will go away and not come back.
Oh, that would have been really nice to know, 25 years ago. But yeah, not a problem for me much now. I don't have a well now. I'm on municipal, so I go to my local water vendor and I buy it, and they appreciate the business. So you store the stuff you make out of this. You store it in glass or BPA free clear blue drinking plastic. So you can. To prepare a bottle, you take a few tablespoons of the patch kit and a clean, dry, polished dry, no dish detergent residue. It's very important that there's nothing in there that can react or cause a salt to form. And you swirl it around so that the silver in it comes out and it coats the sides. Over successive uses, a film of silver will form on the bottle. I can attest to the fact that this happens. All of the bottles that I've been using get a thin, silvery, glittery film on them. You can make a spritzer. You could fill a spritzer bottle with it. It says here, patch kit is useful as a topical application. It is a touch strong for internal use. It does wonders for cuts, bruises, insect bites, abrasions, burns, or any other external injury. It also makes a highly effective sunscreen. True story. I burn in 15 minutes in sunlight. I did an experiment in the summer with this on a really sunny day. I put regular sunscreen on the rest of my body and left one arm bare and sprayed it with patch kit. My patch kit arm tanned, but it did not burn, and it only got a light tan. The rest of me stayed pasty white. So yeah, it makes a very effective sunscreen. Since I started using this, I haven't burned, and I've been out in the sun a lot. It says here, patch kit will precipitate out and rise to the top of the water when left undisturbed. Shake it gently before use to reincorporate. So human grade. If you take a 19-liter or 5-gallon bottle of distilled water, and stick the cage assembly inside it and run it for 140 hours or 5 days, you will have human grade. This, use it at your own risk, but some people have been drinking this, and some people have been giving this to their pets. Anecdotal evidence from at least 20 people. Well, there's more people now, because there's people that that have been using this with me. Anecdotal evidence from at least 20 people who have been making use of the silver water indicates there may be health benefits to internal consumption. Use it at your own risk. Do the research. Find out. If you're going to do this, do it safely. But anecdotal results have included a more youthful appearance, regrowth of lost hair, return of original hair color, reduction in bodily aches and pains, lessening of chronic illness symptoms, and improved natural immunity. There have been no studies looking at the effectiveness of this, and the LD50 has not been determined. For caution's sake, we do not advocate using this product internally, but if you do choose to do so, the following methods have been used by others with no known negative results. So LD50, if you don't know what that means, LD50 is the dose required to kill 50% of the population that takes it. And so this is a term that's used in toxicology. To say something has no LD50, like for instance, the LD50 of table salt is something like 5 grams or something like that or like a gram per kilogram of body weight. So what this is saying is that nobody has managed to determine what is too much or whether or not this is safe to use in the long run or how much is toxic. That's what that means. So it says that if you're using this at your own risk. But what has been done anecdotally is apparently you pour 2 to 4 ounces into a dedicated glass of crystal glass that has been rinsed with distilled water and polished dry. Take it on an empty stomach when you wake up and immediately lie on your right side for 20 or 30 minutes and afterwards get up and go about your day. Don't mix it with anything. And the reason why you lie on your side is so that it doesn't go into your intestines. And that's probably a good idea because silver, as some people might know, is very antibacterial. And there are bacteria in your intestines that you want to be there. So draining it into your intestines might not be the greatest thing. It says, repeat every other day. If you are using this, please note that people who have used this report having intense protein cravings about 1 or 2 weeks into the protocol. Do not attempt to skip meals. Eat high-quality proteins until you no longer feel hungry. Watch out for something called a Herxheimer reaction. Seriously ill people with a lot of health problems have been known to experience a temporary worsening of symptoms. This is particularly noteworthy with cases of candidiasis. If you experience a Herxheimer reaction, take half a dose and monitor your condition. Stop using it if the Herxheimer reaction is too severe for you to resume, and resume it when you feel better. You can find more information about Herxheimer reactions online. So I didn't have a Herxheimer reaction. I did have spontaneous candida die off.
Well, see what happens, I think, during those reactions is your system gets flooded with
it gets overloaded, yeah.
And that's what makes people feel sick.
So
at the
awful.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will go away, but that's important to try to keep that from happening.
Yes.
And by being very cautious with everything that you do and following the precautions mentioned.
It's important
again,
to note that reaction
at your own
is
risk.
a good thing.
Yeah, it means that a Herxheimer reaction occurs because you're having die-off. Because you're having so much die-off that it's overloading your immune system. I'd never had a Herxheimer reaction. I definitely had candida die-off, though. Like, I was passing huge quantities of it in the toilet, and I was like, oh, goodness.
Ouch.
But I didn't have the Herx, and I've had a Herx from candida die-off before. I didn't have the Herx with this. It was very interesting.
That is interesting.
It is very interesting.
The reaction is a good thing because it means there was something in your body that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Managing that reaction by watching your conditions and lowering the dose for a while until that reaction goes away is of utmost importance. Manage the
Yes.
reaction and know it's a good thing.
And of course, we're not really giving any particular advice.
No, we're not
This is
giving
everything.
advice. If you choose to use this, this is entirely at your own risk. I've chosen to use this, and I've had extremely positive results. My hair, which was mostly white, is coming back brown again. Somebody I know who had hair loss is experiencing regrowth.
Okay,
You know,
I'm
it
building
actually-
a box. I'm building a box. Right?
It actually says that. It says that when you do research that I was looking up about.
On monoatomic silver, it says that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does say that.
I'd
It
heard
does
of
say that.
Ormus before, and I knew it to be the real thing, and I knew it to be extremely beneficial if you could get your hands on the real thing. Unfortunately, there was no way to get my hands on the real thing, and I did not know how to make it myself. Well, now I know how to make it myself, so...
Yeah. It says silver reverses hair loss and premature graying due to aging. So, I mean, this is written in an article that I'm looking at right now. It also increases the synaptic firing efficiency in the neural connections, bringing about more powerful clarity and focus.
Yes, I can attest to that.
And it's a great detoxifier, which also indicates what we were just talking about, I can't even say that word. That reaction.
Herxheimer reaction.
Herxheimer. Yes. Anyway, so it also fights infection. But again, we have to be careful what we're saying, and we're not making any claims. But it's also interesting to know that the FDA has done everything in their power to try to take this away or put it under this type of thing.
This is absolutely not approved by any health authority anywhere.
No, because they're all bought and paid for by pharma, but that's a whole nother thing.
It may have benefits to those who have been injured in specific ways that we won't mention on this stream.
Yes.
So if you or your family member are injured in specific ways that we won't mention on this stream, that you can probably put two and two together.
Exactly.
Nobody's gonna stop you from making this yet, anyway.
Right. And you basically can get more information by doing a little research. That's all it takes.
Avoid vendors who want to sell you Ormus, because you don't know the actual provision of those products. You don't know what's in them. You don't know if it's made correctly. If you make it yourself, you know. And hey, for $200 you can make something that runs for 9 years and produces a lifetime supply. So, why spend that money on an ounce of powder that you don't even know about?
So if you were doing the exact same thing with gold instead of silver, you would do it exactly the same way. Is that correct?
Exactly the same way. Same hertz, same setup, same thing. You wouldn't use the same cage, and you wouldn't share the same bottle. You'd get a dedicated one for that because you don't want contamination, right? But yeah, exactly the same. Same thing with, if you could get your hands on 2 ounces of platinum. Again, I think purity probably matters. So you want to go for the most pure. You probably don't want like a log 4, but log 3 is fine. Like 99.999% pure is good enough. Yeah. You don't need to go 9999. And it says here, once again, warnings and cautions, no LD50 has been established. We have observed no ill effects of greater doses, but that does not mean ill effects are not possible. Use caution if using this substance internally. There is every evidence that silver may remain in your system for some time and may accumulate in organs. A higher dose is not necessarily better. So that's important. More is not necessarily better.
Yes, and there are people who have used other products that are not the same as this that have actually turned blue as a result.
Yes, Argyria results when you have silver in solution. Mm-hmm. So if you have colloidal or ionic silver, Argyria can result. I do know from my own research that Argyria has never been noted with true Ormus. Mm-hmm. But again, use caution when you consume this. We can make, if you take this and you end up doing it wrong and you turn blue, nobody is legally liable but you. It's always at your own risk. Right?
If you turn blue, it's probably because you used bars that were black, and
Yes.
you actually had a sodium silver that you
And
were
you didn't
consuming.
follow instructions to the letter.
Follow it
Sodium
to the
silver does
letter.
that.
Use something that measures parts per million to make sure that there's no ionic activity. That's the safest way. Argyria can only form with ionic activity. And it has to be brewed in an ion-free environment, or you end up with ionic silver or colloidal silver. And that's, you can use colloidal silver for other stuff, but don't use it for this.
2 questions.
Never consume the product of black bars. This can contain oxides, which can be very poisonous. So don't take it without lying down, because you may wipe out your intestinal flora from gastric emptying. Silver is an indiscriminate killer of microbes, but spares multicellular life.
It was used before antibiotics were created.
It was.
2 questions.
Yeah?
Number 1, stability of the product. What's the shelf life of the product after it's created?
We don't know. There was a note that we had that said this has been stable for at least a year. So the creator of this has been keeping it stable for at least a year. We don't know how long it stays stable. If it changes color, then it's lost stability.
Okay.
If it changes color, throw it out.
Next question. Sensitivity to sunlight. Colloidal silver products say that you have to store them in a dark place, protect them from sunlight, because sunlight causes oxidation of the...
Oh, it says it right here. The silver water is photostable and stable at room temperature. Do not allow the silver water to freeze or boil. Okay. Now, freezing, I can attest to the fact that freezing does not affect the stability, because I've shipped it and it's gotten frozen, and it was fine. Mind you, it was consumed a lot long before any instability might have shown up. But it says here that it's photostable and stable at room temperature. So photostable means that it won't lose stability from light.
Okay.
It also says don't take it after consuming food, alcohol, or other beverages. Always take it on an empty stomach in a fasted state, so that it will not react. Like, it'll have less things it can react with in your stomach.
So we would encourage people to do some research, read up, and definitely follow any
use
of
this
the
as safely as you
precautions that have
can.
been
Do not go
here.
against any of the precautions. Keep it in a glass container, BPA-free clear blue plastic containers for bulk storage, or a clear plastic drinking water bottle for dispensing and use. So we use Naya bottles, but if you don't have Naya water, because I think that's a Canadian thing, then your regular drinking water bottles, as long as they've been as long as you've put patch grade in it and shooken it up so it's been cured, it'll store the drinking stuff for dispensing and use. But you can use it in the big tub, like the big 5-gallon water bottles. You can store it in those. Don't mix it with anything. It says, do not mix with any other substance, not a flavor, not a color, not a salt, or anything else. This may cause the silver water to flash into a colloidal state. What this means is that the silver has left its monoatomic pico state and has collapsed into a nano state, at which point it cannot be used safely and must be discarded. You will be able to tell if the silver water has flashed. First, it turns pitch black, like Vanta black. Then it turns clear red. Then it turns greeny brown, and finally settles out brown. It has collapsed from a picoscale monoatomic state into a nanoscale colloid. At this point, it's really not good for anything at all except as a broad spectrum sterilizer. It will kill multicellular life at this point, so keep away from pets and children and do not consume. It may have a niche use as a seed feminizer. It is probably best to discard this if it happens. Please be cautious, as it might kill your septic tank. Neutralize it with hydrogen peroxide. There is not enough silver in the water to make it worthwhile to recover. Use gloves when handling this. I guess the concentrations of this are extremely small. It does not take much of this stuff to have an effect. More is not better. Do not attempt to accelerate the production by changing the voltage of the box or changing the programming. This will result in an unstable mixture that is prone to flashing. If you wish to produce more silver water faster, build another box and another silver bar cage and run it. It is worth noting that the average useful dose for most people is 1.5 liters every 6 months. A single set of bars is more than enough to keep a small village in silver water. Disruptive tech indeed.
The voltage, the current, and the frequency of the pulses are specifically tuned to release silver in the right particle size.
Exactly. That's what my friend said. He's smarter than I am. So
if you mess with the voltage or the current, you will cause molecules that are too large, and you will not wind up with ormus. You will wind up with
colloidal silver.
Yeah. Nano or colloidal silver.
Avoid contact with metals or reactive substances. This may cause the water to flash and collapse to a nano-colloid state. No, watch the language here. Do not F with it. The silver water appears to be safe when produced and used exactly as described here. Deviating from this method may produce unexpected results, and those results may not be safe. If you wish to experiment, you will do so entirely at your own risk. Yeah, don't mess with it. It works the way it's written. And I can verify that it works the way it's written. Other potential uses and applications. Feel free to experiment with other potential uses and applications of the product. The resulting silver powder is highly conductive and may have applications in electronics and materials sciences, particularly as conductive paint. More research is needed, including an effective way to extract the monoatomic silver from its distilled water substrate without causing a collapse in the state. We've tried to do this. The only way we found is just plain old put it in an evaporation tray and let it evaporate at room temperature, and that takes a long time. The powder buildup, I have noticed in the months that I've been running this machine, the powder buildup that has formed, and I had some splatter on the table that I was using to make it. It has not shown any signs of tarnish, oddly at all. I wonder if that's because the electron shell is intact. What do you think, Paul?
That's entirely possible. Probably the safest use for this is generate some silver water and let it evaporate and gather up the dust and mix it with a little bit of white paint, put it on your wall, and you will have your very own highly reflective silver screen for your LCD projector.
Indeed.
Any other suggested use not being made here?
Yes, you can use it to make fun electrically active paint that you can use to paint circuits. That's also really cool. I've seen some neat stuff with painted circuits online, so now you can make your own circuit paint. Some people have given this to their pets with no ill effect. If you choose to give this to your pet, give a new clean water dish made of glass or BPA-free clear blue plastic, which you have treated with Patch Kit. I've been giving this to my pet. I tried an experiment. I gave her one bottle of the regular water that she drinks all the time, and across the room, another bottle of this. Well, since we offered this, she has refused to drink the regular water.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, she won't drink it. I mean, if I took this away, she'd drink it because that's all she'd have. But as long as there's an option, she drinks this. And it's, the funniest thing is, like, when I first gave it to her, she'd sit there and she'd stare at it for a few minutes, and then she'd give it a few licks and then stare at it. So I think it must look different to her than it does to me. But I think cats see into the infrared, and this is infrared reflective, which is why it blocks sunburns. You can also use it to treat seeds against fungal, viral, and bacterial infections. Soak seeds in silver water and then germinate as usual. It also makes a effective spray against various infections and plant diseases. It does not get rid of bugs. It will make the bugs very healthy.
Not exactly something you want to do.
No. So if you're trying to treat bugs, don't treat it with this. You'll have healthy bugs.
All right.
So essentially what I get out of this is multicellular life benefits, but single cellular life does not. Like if you're growing mushrooms for food, like I'm going to be growing oyster mushrooms here. I love gourmet. You would not want to treat your mushrooms with this. It would kill your mushrooms. But it's fine for animals and it's fine for plants, at least as far as we know. Like I said, there's no toxicology studies. Naturally, now that we've released this to the public, they're going to release all kinds of studies saying how poisonous it is and that you should definitely not do this. So you should definitely not do this. Nobody knows how safe it is. But if you were to experiment, this is how.
But if you're one of those risk takers.
I'm a risk taker. You know, my health is so bad. And since I started this, I have several chronic autoimmune disorders that have been starting to go away. I wish I'd had this several years ago before I'd had a major surgery in which an organ was removed.
Well, as you know, much that is done in the health field is not always in your best interest.
No, it
in fact,
isn't.
Many times it's not. And I would elaborate on that more, but we do have the censorable platforms open
yeah,
yet. So
we are.
we'll
broadcasting everywhere we can right now. So hopefully,
yes.
Yeah. If you choose to play around with this, you know, follow the instructions on building the box exactly as written, please. If you wish to innovate, you're doing innovations entirely at your own risk. But if you do manage to innovate something and stumble on something that's that you find is useful, release it in the same free spirit that you received it.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this. It is being released as a free thing. It's not designed for anyone to try to market or to try to make money off it. That's not the purpose of it at all. And again, it's also being used at your own risk. But if you follow the instructions, you may be amazed at the results you get.
Yeah. And I've been looking at this and seeing what I could do because what the non-contact voltage reader tells me is that this is basically a teeny tiny little frequency field generator. It generates a teeny tiny little frequency field about the size of a soccer ball. So
well,
what can we do with that? I don't know. I have no idea. So yeah, I'm going to play
Tesla has always said.
Yeah. Well, everybody thinks, you know, like with Tesla, and I think this might actually be based on Tesla tech. But what everybody always thinks with Tesla is that you need like megawatts of power to make anything useful out of it. No,
you don't.
28 volts. 28 volts, 0.05 amps. Not a lot.
Alrighty then. Is there anything else that you think is important to share about this?
Other than, you know, if you do plan to play around with this, you're doing it entirely at your own risk. And if something bad happens, nobody can make, like, there is no warranty, there's no guarantees, there's no legal recourse. This is entirely at your own risk. We are living in, I would still say that that's probably a better proposition than you're getting with certain medical procedures these days.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, you know, use caution. Don't go wild. Do your research. Look up what you can. There's probably some peer-reviewed research, but you got to read between the lines. And for heaven's sakes, don't buy it. Build it yourself, and that way you can verify what's in it. And if you're not good at like if you're really shaky and you can't solder, you know, find a friend who can. Because it's Lego easy.
Soldering is easy. Just cut up a few pieces of wire before you get started and just try to make your own buckyball. You know,
well, the other thing to do is, if you've never done this before at all and you're intimidated by it, is find a friend who is accustomed to doing this type of thing and do it together.
Yeah, any robotics hobbyist could do this in, well, an hour probably. Like I said, the first time I did it, it took me about 5 or 6 hours, but now I can do it in 2 hours, and I'm not particularly fast. It's not that hard.
That's fantastic. Anyway, I think we're coming up on an hour and 40 minutes, and this is a good length for people to be able to go through this and do it yourself. And what we'll do is we have a number of links that will be listed, including the entire instruction booklet that has been put together by Tanaath for your
Oh no,
review.
I've received this, but I've uploaded it for you.
Oh, excuse me. I did say that wrong. And let me
we don't know
corrected.
who wrote this, and I'm not about to find out who wrote this. And you know, if that person, whoever wrote this, should probably keep it to themselves.
Exactly. I'm sorry. You're just releasing it to the public. Let me put it that way. This came from we don't know where, and so be very clear about that.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a mystery. It's whoever it is, I'm very grateful to the fact that they did this, but we have no idea who did it, and I'm not going to try to find out. And I recommend that you don't try to find out. All I know is
necessary.
All I know is they knew enough about me to drop it on my doorstep. But hey, that's okay.
All right then. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for this wonderful information and the opportunity for people to gain this knowledge. And if you have any questions, or you do still have the site, maybe you could put that site up one more time.
Paul, yeah, just one. Yeah, I'm not sharing my screen, but maybe Paul can.
Still there?
Are we still in there, Paul? I think we lost Paul.
There we go.
Oh,
okay. He put that up. Remember that one page that we showed in the very beginning? Would you show that one last time before we go?
It's on the downloads page, and it's about halfway down, and it's called Sobl, SOBL.pdf. I've also shared a link with Gail.
Okay. Let's see.
Well, we have the link, so if you can't find it right now, that's okay, I guess.
Give me 1 second. And new window. There we go. And now here. Wow, threw me for a loop there. Okay.
You're not showing, so you may have to share your screen.
I'm getting there. Give me 1 second. Share screen number 1. Okay.
It's down in the section that says meditation and other files. Well, this isn't a meditation, it's another file.
There we go.
Well, how I found it was I went to download transcripts.
Yep.
I need to go to the home page. Okay. And then download transcripts, and then go right to the bottom or to the middle, and there it is.
Yep.
The PDF.
The Sobl
PDF. It's right there on the website, and you can click on this little icon up here, and you can download that baby right to your computer, or you can click on this one and you can print out a hard copy.
Yeah, and it's not the greatest quality, and I apologize for that. This is what we received. So
but
it was good enough. It's legible.
Yes, it is. So once again, that's silverlegion.org.
Yep. And that's how you spell Silver Legion at the top there. I know some people have had trouble spelling Silver Legion sometimes.
Okay.
Alrighty then. Thank you so much, Tanaath.
You're welcome. And sorry to take up so much of your time. You know, for all of you guys who wonder what I've been doing for the last several months, that's it. I've been playing around with electricity and silver. So.
Well, it's absolutely awesome, and it's a wonderful thing to offer to humanity through whoever provided this to you. They are a humanitarian. And
a big thank you to mystery benefactor, whoever you are. Stay safe out there and keep inventing things.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Alrighty then. Thank you, listeners. And I hope you enjoy this, and you have all the instructions you need. Thank you.
Good luck.
Free Range with Gail of Gaia is honored to be affiliated with MyNutra, makers of hemp paste. Hemp paste is a whole food product that still contains most, if not all, of the terpenes, phytonutrients, essential elements, and CBDs of the raw hemp plant. CBD oil manufacturing methods strip away living essential elements, leaving only one, a dead CBD oil. CBD oil alone simply cannot support the entourage effect that occurs when hemp pastes essential nutrients go to work to support your optimum health. Almost 200 terpenes and over 500 other phytonutrients work together with a synergistic effect that simply doesn't happen with CBD oil alone. Visit hemppaste.gailofgaia.com. That's hemppaste.gailofgaia.com to learn more. And be sure to check out the impressive array of hemp-enriched products while you're there. That website again, hemppaste.gailofgaia.com. That's hemppaste.gailofgaia.com. Free Range with Gail of Gaia and Free Range Productions is proud to partner with C60evo.com, makers of ESS60 products. C60, the carbon-60 molecule, delivers more than 172 times the power of vitamin C as an antioxidant. ESS60 is simply the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that not only works, it is the only C60 molecule that is approved for both internal and external use. ESS60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. People report better sleep, more energy and flexibility, and renewed mental clarity when they take ESS60 products. For more information, visit ess60.gailofgaia.com. That is ess60.gailofgaia.com. This Free Range Productions program is presented for information purposes only. The statements made herein have not been evaluated by any agency and should not be considered professional, legal, or medical advice. Viewers are directed to consult their own professional sources before acting on any information presented here.